Hi, everybody. I got the message that this hangout on air is hi.
Hi, it totally froze.
It did freeze. Hey guys, sorry about that. Good evening, Sasnacks. I'm Fumbi with We So Nerdy, here with Katie, and we are here to talk about tonight's latest Outlander episode, Do No Harm. Katie, how's it going?
Oh, it's going great. I've had a really fantastic night of TV, and I can't wait to talk to you about this episode and all other things. Did it freeze again?
It froze again. I'm so sorry. Katie?
Yeah, I'm here.
How are you?
I'm good. Did you hear anything I said?
No, ma'am.
No. Oh, well, it's been a really great night for TV. And so I'm really excited to talk about this episode and lots of other things. Did it freeze again?
It did. I don't know what's going on. Guys, I'm so sorry for these technical issues. Hopefully it gets better. Yeah, but it seems to be okay. So hopefully it continues to be okay. Katie was just saying that tonight was a really good night for TV. Actually, before we started, she was telling me about The Walking Dead and their great leap forward. So that sounds really interesting and optimistic and fic-like in the most positive ways, right, Katie?
Yes, I'm super stoked. So if you gave up watching The Walking Dead a while ago, or you've been hanging on like I have, this felt like a really positive step forward. And so I'm excited. I am hopeful. And honestly, like I told for my negative ass, that is a huge statement. I am so pessimistic and cynical. So for me to be like, positivity, you should go, oh. But yeah, I'm excited. I am really excited about it.
Progress.
Like,
so guys, hi. I have no idea what's going on. This is being so like twitchy, going in and out. Hopefully this isn't the story of our evening together. But I do want to tell you guys that our full recap of Do No Harm is live, and the link is already down below. So please definitely take a look. It has, it also includes 3 new clips from the episode. So definitely take a look at that recap review when you get a chance. So I need to say that I watched tonight's episode, Do No Harm. I've watched it 3 times, and even after watching 3 times, I'm still like in the process of digesting. So I ask that those of our friends who are watching that you please bear with me as I'm trying to work through this. And apparently we're just having like all sorts of technical difficulties. Hopefully this isn't the story of the night, and that it kicks back in and does what it's supposed to do. But anyway, again, so tonight's episode, Do No Harm, we see Jamie and Claire's first attempt to settle down and establish roots in North Carolina in the aftermath of Bonnet's brutal attack that we saw at the end of last week's episode. So once again, interestingly enough, there's a lot of optimism. There's a lot of excitement about the potential here, especially given Jamie's family reunion with his aunt. However, Jamie, Claire, and even Ian, right, very quickly realized that River Run and Cross Creek will actually not be the best place for them. And you think about the title of tonight's episode, Do No Harm, is a callback to Claire's Hippocratic Oath as a doctor. And right, even Jamie recognizes and has always recognized Claire's sincere commitment to that oath and to her profession and to her dedication to saving lives. But the very devastating ending of tonight's episode forces Claire to make a choice that she would never want to make. And that choice, in fact, highlights the brutality and the barbarism of America's slave-based society. So we have a lot to talk about, friends. We have a lot to digest. We're going to do it together. Again, I ask that you please bear with me. And I'm actually going to turn it over to Katie, because I feel like I've been talking forever, and ask Katie to kick things off and maybe just share, what did you really like about the episode, and what stood out most to you about River Run?
I think I don't necessarily know if it's one of my favorite things about the episode, but we've always heard, Mackenzies, they have this, this way about them. And to see Angie Jocasta and kind of embody everything about a Mackenzie, I was just like, this lady, she's on the outside. She may have lost her sight. She may be this woman in this world where she is not necessarily, looked for unsolicited opinions, according to her. But she knows what she's doing. Like, she'll run the show. She was very manipulative and calculative. One of the things that caught me, and I wrote a note about it, is when they're still on the barge going down the river, and before they arrive at River Run, Claire tries to console Jamie and tell him, it's not your fault. There's nothing you could have done. And Jamie is still really, that weighs really heavily on him. And I know he punched, I know he hit, and he has a sore hand, but he was sitting there rubbing his knuckles and his hand. And all like that just took me straight back to, season 1, season 2, where his hand, where Blackjack Randall had hurt his hand so badly and it caused it so much pain. And like, I automatically thought of that as like a tick for Jamie, where he feels like he didn't do enough, where he sort of failed. And even though it hurts, it just, that called back to season 2, like early season 2 to me so much at the beginning.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. The beginning of tonight's episode was really like, it was a low point, you know what I mean? Like, Jamie is feeling so much guilt. He's like, why did I help Stephen Bonnet? Why did I let this wolf into the hen house? Why did I aid him? Why did I welcome him? And it all came back to bite us, right? Claire, I couldn't protect you when you needed to be protected. My man from Ardsmuir is now dead, and he doesn't even get a proper burial on consecrated ground. I had to bury him on the side of the river, like a shallow grave by the side of the river. And what even needles Jamie more is the fact that Stephen Bonnet is still at large. He and his people are still out at large to do this type of thing to others and cause this kind of trouble and this distress for other people. And Jamie just feels that he aided and abetted Bonnet in being able to wreak that havoc. So he feels that guilt very, very deeply.
He does. And that was one of the things he said, it's my cross to bear. Mm-hmm. Whoever he attacks down the road. And, it brings it back down to the first episode of the season. It's a circle. Everything's a circle. And so whoever Bonnet hurts, whoever crosses Bonnet's path in the future, I feel like Jamie, he holds responsibility to himself for that. But, it's just, I don't think we've seen the last of him.
Of who? Bonnet?
Bonnet. And because of that, I think Jamie's going to have a lot he's going to have a lot on his weight on his shoulders as the season moves forward.
For sure. I mean, you just even think about it, right? I mean, the gems, so even like into like trying to move into the future and set up their life into the future, Bonnet got their gems, right? So any plan that they had for investment to settle down and build something for themselves in North Carolina, that is, is gone, right? And that really rankles, it really, really causes distress, and it really, it really makes Jamie angry. Well, upset, I think is a better word. But Claire being who she is, right, really tries to comfort him, and she says, this isn't our first time. When I first married you, you didn't have a shilling to your name, and yet, here we are in the Americas, alive and together. So there has to be something positive in that. So I think for the beginning of the episode, like the immediate beginning of the episode, that's what really stood out to me is Jamie's guilt, as well as Claire's attempt to really, like, we've always said this, that Claire is ride or die for her man. And this is just an instance of Claire doing exactly that.
It is. And, Jamie, I think for once, he saw having those jewels, having that money. And I know it's obvious. This was his attempt to be able to set something up on his own without depending or being sort of indebted to anyone else. And now that all those things are taken away, his choices are either take this land that could end up making him, a loyalist for a war that's just a few years down the road, or as we see later in the episode, kind of forcefully shoved into the being the master of River Run. And so it takes away Jamie's choices. And I think he really sort of hates Bonnet a lot for taking away his choices.
Yeah.
Especially the future.
I said it before and I'll say it again. I've hated Stephen Bonnet for years. And that hatred continues. However, in sort of an interesting shift from Jamie talking about the guilt and again dealing with the aftermath of Bonnet's attack, they arrive at River Run. And Auntie Jocasta is there with Ulysses and welcomes them with open arms. I mean, just as Claire said, right? That's part of how Claire tries to comfort Jamie is by saying, at least we have family that we can count on. We can count on Jocasta. This will be fine. And when they arrive, I mean, Jamie bows and then they embrace one another. And it's just so wonderful because when's the last time that we saw a whole bunch of Mackenzies together? You know what I mean? So it's just, that reunion I thought was wonderful. I thought it was a very, very sweet moment.
It was. And I love what she said, you've grown into like a giant of a man is what she said, something like that. And he said, the last time you saw me, I was a bear and the only place to go was up. I was like, oh, like that. That made me happy. That was a sweet little moment between them. And him telling Claire, I've always wanted you to meet my mother, but I can see my mom in her and I can hear her in her voice. And so I feel like this is a good, second best type thing. That was sweet.
Absolutely. And even like Auntie Jocasta and Jamie reminiscing about Jamie's mom and how much they miss her and being able to share that moment and share that connection, because again, it isn't, I don't think it's often for Jamie that he's with other people who actually knew his mother when she was alive. So being able to, who would know his mom better than her sister, So being able to share that connection, and the fact, as you said, that, Jamie comments to Claire about the similarities in their mannerisms and their voices. I think it's wonder. He gets really choked up. He gets choked up and emotional. Well, as much as Jamie does, but he's really choked up and he's trying to, keep himself together. It was very, very sweet. It was very sweet.
It was. I liked that. It was nice that they had those moments where they got to talk and there was nothing sort of underlying about it. But she makes it pretty clear early on, well, you've got a smart business mind and, why would you be a burden? And then you're like, oh, Jenny's been telling stories.
Yep. Yeah, that's the thing. Auntie Jocasta has been keeping tabs on Jamie, right? So when they arrive, he takes the flowers from. She takes the flowers from Ian, and that's when we realize, right, that she's blind. And like, this is something that I wanted to mention last time, but obviously spoilers. But I didn't like, from the previews we had been getting, I couldn't tell whether or not Jocasta was still blind. So the fact that she is made, I mean, I know that there certain changes need to be made in the adaptation of the book, but I'm really glad that they kept that the same, right? And even the reveal of it with Ian trying to present her with flowers, and then of course we realize that Ulysses is basically Jocasta's eyes. So, you know, then we sort of realize that, you know, she hasn't had her sight, but she does still see like shapes and shadows, and that other senses are heightened, like her hearing and supposedly her ability to discern truth. So I thought that reveal was really interesting. But you know, as you're saying, right, like when they're sitting in the parlor and they're sort of, Jamie's telling them about Bonnet. And again, she's real. I mean, she's like a maternal figure. Like she comforts him and says, you know, you did nothing wrong. And, you know, you're with family now. You can count on me. And as you said, Katie, it'll be great to have you around. I've been keeping tabs on you. I know you have a head for business. You are here, and this is exactly where you need to be. And that sense of belonging is really important for a person, you know, especially for Jamie, I think.
Well, and taking into account like the last several years, he's been, you know, separated from his family. And this is the first time that he's been back with a family member that he can actively help and be visible while doing so. Because even when, you know, after Culloden and all that, and he was hiding in the woods, he still couldn't, you know, be visible for his family there. And so Jamie loves his family and he wants to belong. And so to be able to help her, you know, he feels that that's sort of his duty. And it doesn't, and I guess maybe I look at the cynical side of things a little bit too much. But I feel like the Mackenzie part of her realizes that and wants to use that. So, you know.
Absolutely. Like it's so I mean, we'll talk about it all, but you know, you think about Dougal and Colum, and I haven't thought about Dougal and Colum in a while.
I know.
Or we haven't seen them, right, in a while. And it is really interesting to be able to think about having the Mackenzie representation back on the show through Jocasta, right? Because like, I mean, Colum and Dougal are very complicated characters, right? I mean, there's certain times where we see them, we love them, we laugh at them. And then there are other times when we're like, you guys are like demons. What are you doing? Why are you being like this? And I can very much imagine thinking the same thing about Jocasta. Like, you are such an angel, and you are also like a demon.
So many layers that we just don't really know how to. But I mean, that's a trio of siblings right there. I mean, honestly, Colum, Dougal, and Jocasta.
Yeah.
Oh, mercy. I would not have wanted to grow up with those three like meddling children at all.
And this is sort of going on a tangent that maybe we don't want to go on.
Right.
I would one day love to, if there was any way that we could have a flashback to like young Jamie with his mom, like I would love to see her. Maybe. I don't know if such a thing is possible, but that would be cool. So they're at River Run. Jamie and Claire are completely astounded by the grandeur of, well, let me take that back. Jamie is astounded by the grandeur of the estate. And all Claire can think about is the fact that she is surrounded by slaves.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's something that we always knew that was going to be something that Claire was going to voice her opinion about, because Claire's not just going to sit there and let all this happen and be like, well, it's historical. no, Claire is going to try and change things. If we know anything about Claire, it's that no matter where she falls in time, she's going to actively try and make a positive difference.
Absolutely.
And that goes with the slavery as well. Like, and she, whenever she first meets Phaedra, like in the room, she's like, "You can call me Claire."
I know, right? And I was like,
"Oh no!" Like
even like Ulysses' face. Ulysses was like,
I know. Ulysses like, "Oh,
like, what do you think this is? Where do you think you are?"
Like, Mistress Claire, like backtracks a little bit because like even Phaedra's face is like, "I'm not calling you Claire," like because she knows that even if she's given permission by Claire to call her this, there's no way that she can do it.
No.
And that's, oh goodness. And yeah, I have so many thoughts and
I know I'm still processing as well. Right? Because like Claire, you like, it's such a difficult situation, right? Because even as Jamie tries to like comfort Claire by saying, you know, Claire, you even told me that things get better, that slavery doesn't last forever in this country, that things get better. So is it possible that we can let that comfort us? And it becomes very apparent very quickly that no, we cannot let that comfort us, right? That Claire is in this position of not wanting to alienate Jocasta, who is Jamie's only family here, and a person on whom they are dependent now. I mean, like for life, their livelihoods are dependent on. So she doesn't want to alienate Jocasta, but at the same time, right, she's thinking about Joe, right? She's thinking about you know, like her friends, the people that she knows, right? As well as just the immorality and barbarism of slavery in and of itself, right? And she cannot let it go. And you know what? I don't blame her.
Oh, I don't blame her at all. I think that they shrug her off so easily too. They're like, "Oh, you must have spent time with some Quakers."
Yeah.
And they blame it on that as opposed to going, "Wow, people, human beings that are being treated this way." They're like, "Oh, you spent some time with some Quakers.
Yeah.
You know, maybe you'll get over it."
Yeah, like that scene, the scene where Phaedra is helping to fit Claire for that dress, and Phaedra, I love her. Phaedra is so complimentary of Claire's figure, you know?
It is.
I love Phaedra, right? And like Auntie Jocasta is there, and she's just like, "So, tell me how much you love River Run." And Claire is like, "You want compliments? I have no compliments to give you." I have no compliments to give you because your entire estate is predicated and constructed on the backs of Black slave labor. And that's something that I cannot support. And even if you look at Phaedra's face, if you look at Phaedra's face in that scene, she's looking at Miss Jo too. Like, what's Miss Jo about to say? I want to take a look at this, right? So it's hard. It's hard. It's really, really complicated. And it does cause conflict. But as you said, Katie, for the most part, Auntie Jocasta just sort of brushes it off like, "Oh, you're so spirited. It's that Mackenzie fire in you." Or, "Oh, you know, the slaves are my friends," right? Like she just sort of like brushes it off. And I mean,
I treat them so well. I found if you're benevolent to them, they're fine. And I'm just like, oh. It just leaves a bad taste in your mouth. And you know, like one of the things that we talked about repeatedly, and that we wanted to, you know, check ourselves, was we wanted to make sure that we hoped that they would tell the story accurately, and that they wouldn't try and make slavery seem well, you know, some slave masters were kind and good, and you know, that stereotype of not all slave holders were bad. And so they definitely didn't do that. But it's hard for you to find something redeemable in someone who thinks this way, if it is that time period. And I understand that, hey, it's 2018 and I'm obviously not in the 60s or whatever, but I find it so hard that if there were groups of people back then, like the Quakers, who were like, I think slavery is bad and a wrong thing, then, there were people out there that knew it was wrong.
Yeah.
And that still kind of were complicit in the practice of it. And that's obviously true. It's like history. But I guess for me, the complicity makes a lot of people irredeemable.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it's very again, I apologize and ask for some leniency from those who are watching, because I'm trying to work my way through all my thoughts as well. But if you think about what it was like to be a Black person, a slave in North Carolina in this time period, this episode, I think, really demonstrates the horrible extremes, right? At one extreme, you have Jocasta's paternalism. Like, what would they, if I wasn't here to give them a livelihood and a purpose, what would they do without me? And, I would never treat them like livestock. They're my, some of them are my friends. And, no one ever tried. We've only had a few over the years try to run away. You know what I mean? So, there's that sort of paternalism of Jocasta, and then you sort of rival it with where we get to at the end of the episode with just that that barbarism, that brutality disguised as law, right? And for me, it's just like the entire situation is just really indicative. And again, I think I'm not saying this is a critique of the episode. I'm saying this is something that I thought the episode did really well, which is in demonstrating how embedded and insidious slavery was in law and in society as well. Right? I mean, I know I'm all over the place, and I apologize. But I just flash forward right to the scene after Jamie finds out that he's going to be the heir, and he's like thinking about it, and he tells Auntie Jocasta and Farquhar, that's a mouthful, Farquhar Campbell, that he wants to free the slaves, and Farquhar launches on this diatribe about what it would take. It would take 15,000 pounds sterling, which is, I think, about the equivalent of 500,000 US dollars today. It would take that in order to set his slaves free, as well as various guarantees, right? And on top of that, there would still be the threat that their neighbors would disappear them or harm them, right? All in the goal of preserving slavery as an institution, right? That's incredible. It's incredible.
When he was going through that list of, he's like, well, first you have to prove that they saved your life, or that they've saved some life. And then he started listing off all these other things. It's such a structure that's created that, how are you going to do that? How are you going to release someone or allow someone to be free? The system is not made for anyone to be free, ever.
Yeah.
And even if he is free, or they do free someone, like the boat, he was the steerer on the boat.
On the barge, yeah.
On the barge, he's still going to have to stay with that man. Because there's no way he can walk around North Carolina on his own and be like, oh, well, I'm free. Someone bought my freedom. No one's going to believe that. And if he did have papers, they would just take them.
Yeah, yeah.
There's nothing stopping him.
Yeah, yeah. I think, folks out there have seen the film 12 Years a Slave, or read the book 12 Years a Slave. And that's the story of what happened, right? Freed Black people were disappeared all the time and sent back south to, as slaves. So this is, as we've said, part of our history, right? And I think the fact that Jamie more so than Claire, I think in this is the instance, Jamie is optimistic, right? Because right, they have the party. Auntie Jocasta announces in front of Cross Creek's elite that I've selected my heir, and my heir is going to be my nephew Jamie. And Jamie, later that night when Jamie and Claire are talking, I mean, Claire is agitated, right? Claire is like, look, I am not about to be a mistress of a plantation. Jamie, I can't do it. Even for you, I can't do it. And Jamie's like, but, I don't want to own slaves either. But, maybe it's possible that we could do something, we could do something better in just our little corner. And that'll light the fuse that can, lead to change. And what does Claire say?
I wrote it down.
What does Claire say?
Fuses often lead to explosions. And he says, but when the explosion clears, usually the devil's gone. And I'm like, yeah, but...
But you aren't there. You were all gone.
Yeah.
Right?
It was a difficult episode to watch, especially when like you said, this brutality, like this is masked as law. And they're like, well, this is the law. This is what happens when they break this law, or this is what happens when they do this and do that. And they see it as law and as just. And meanwhile, you had a scene where Ian was talking with the John
Quincy Myers
about the Native Americans, and essentially like talking about their savagery and their brutality. And like, okay, so that's brutality, but what you're doing is law.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. And there's several there's several layers. There are absolutely several layers, right? And the thing is, like, even sort of taking a step back and thinking about Ian in this episode, one thing that really stood out to me for reasons, and book readers will know those reasons. One thing that really stood out to me was Ian's fascination with Native Americans. And like John Quincy Myers is there, and they're supposedly he's helping like de-skunkify Rolo, and it's like, no, you're not. This little black boy is actually doing the work, and doing the work quite well. But he's just like saying all this ridiculousness about Native American women and how they like him hairy or whatever. But the thing that Ian says that I think is so fascinating is how he's like, well, actually, like, I don't see any difference between Native Americans and Highlanders, right? I mean, Native Americans supposedly have tribal conflict, and Highlanders have like clan conflict. So when Ian says that, I think it's really profound, actually, if I'm being honest with you. I thought it was profound.
I love that part. And I liked the part where Ian and Claire were talking at the party.
Yeah.
Ian says, well, it was their country first. And they were like, oh, you're making it sound so simple. But you're forgetting that Ian comes from a place where someone came into his land and was like, oh, this is ours now.
Ooh.
And also the same people who came to America and were like, hey, it's ours now.
Exactly. Right? Like, who would know better than Ian and Jamie what British colonizers, or what colonizers supposedly bringing civilization are capable of, right? Ian grew up with his uncle in hiding and his dad being repeatedly arrested, where Fergus had his hand chopped off by redcoats, right? I mean, this is how they live post Culloden, right? So who knows better than Jamie and Ian what supposedly the British bringing civilization actually means for local people, for indigenous people, right? So the fact that Ian, even in his youth, can identify that and see that, but not only see it, but speak it out loud, is so admirable.
Oh, I was so proud of him. I was so proud of him, and I think that he knows these things and he sees these things, and he's been around Jamie and Claire especially so much that he knows that he's seen Claire not be afraid to say these things, and he's realized that he has a voice too, and that he can say these things. If Claire can go out, if his Auntie Claire can go out there and say all these, just say all these truths, then he can speak too. Now, will people listen? No, they'll just kind of do what they did, but he's saying it, and that's important.
Yeah. Well, I mean, which is exactly what happened at the party, right? Like Claire was, they were complaining about politics, about Native Americans, about the regulators. And Claire was like, actually, I agree with those people. I'm on their side. And, Ian voices the same thing. And then they call them, oh, you're so charmingly naive. You just don't get it. This is the price of civilization. They're better off with us here than they would be without us here, right? That same paternalism that, we were just talking about. So again, it's so, like inside of myself, I feel the tension. I feel that tension. I felt that tension the entire episode. But it's hard. It's hard.
It's so hard to watch because you look at these people and it is a show. These are actors and they are trying to make it as real to that time as possible. But just to realize that this is not fiction. Like this part isn't fiction. The way that these people behaved, the way that they thought, the things that they said, that's accurate.
Mm.
That's accurate. And that was not, thousands of years ago. And it continued through the start of this country. And, without trying to get it continues today. And you're just like, it's hard to watch.
Yeah, it's really, really hard. It's really hard to watch. And, the thing that like Outlander is forever tackling difficult things. Mm-hmm. So I mean, and they sort of, this is a really emotional episode. It's a really deep episode, but there are sort of moments of levity, right? So we already like Phaedra and like Phaedra's interaction with Claire and Auntie Jocasta, like before it took a turn, that was kind of like, that was light a little bit. I thought the scene where Lieutenant Wolf arrives and he's like, you should grow wheat right along the river. And then Jamie like chuckles and he's like, or you could just do rice, and rice is worth more. And Wolf gets so up in arms, right? And he's just like, I'll leave when you don't have family here, not knowing that in fact Auntie Jocasta plans to leave the entire plantation to Jamie.
I don't know about farming, but I'm pretty sure you don't put wheat right beside like the river. Like I'm pretty sure you don't do that. Like I could be wrong. Every time I've seen wheat, it's not been directly beside the river. But he was so full of himself, and I can't deal with Farquaad at all because like all I think of is the dude from Shrek.
His name was Farquaad?
Farquaad?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm just like, no, I can't deal with this because Shrek the musical has been on repeat at my house for at least the last year and a half. And I'm just like, no, can't do it.
You're funny. No, I mean, you look at these people, right? That Jocasta Cameron is surrounded by, and this is the cream of the crop, right? This is the elite of Cross Creek, Cape Fear River Valley society. This is it, and you're like, really, this is it. You know what I mean? You have
The trip from England.
You know, like you have Lieutenant Wolf, who's like this blowhard who knows nothing, and basically he just wants to marry Jocasta so he can have River Run for himself. Let's be real. And even his face when Auntie Jocasta announces that Jamie will be her heir, his face is not happy. Like he's not happy because he had a plan, and that plan has been like botched. So what's he gonna do about it, right? And then and then you have Farquhar Campbell, who's like this man of business, his advisor, who's very embedded, deeply embedded in sort of law and finance of the time, right? So he is a man of the time in like every way that phrase can manifest, right? And I'm not impressed.
I'm not impressed either. Like this is it. This is what we got.
Yeah.
Like really. And then I'm sitting here thinking, like in my head, because it all goes back to something that I liked before. I'm like, these are the guys that are getting ticked off at these regulators or trying to like stir up trouble. And I'm like, Alexander Hamilton's coming around sometime soon. But in my head, it's Lin-Manuel Miranda, so I really don't think it counts. But it makes me happy to make that connection. So
that's funny. Hamilton is coming. Yes,
Hamilton is coming. Crossover.
Oh my! Stop. I wouldn't be ready for that. That would kill me. That would actually. I wouldn't be prepared, but it would be glorious. It would be. I will say. Okay, a couple things. So first, I thought in the scene between like when Wolf leaves and Auntie Jocasta and Jamie are talking, and Jocasta is like, it's so good to have you around. Don't worry about offending Lieutenant Wolf. In fact, you as a man can say things that I cannot say. And that really struck me because it's like, even as formidable as Auntie Jocasta is, even she as a woman is limited by society, right? So all she would be able to do is sort of like flirt and, be coy, but she could never, society would never sort of allow her to speak directly and openly and straight, in a straightforward manner in the way that Jamie as a man can. So I thought that was a really interesting exchange.
I liked that part because she kind of sits him down and pats his leg, and she's like, feel free to say whatever you want to. And she even makes a statement that her and her previous husband were very much partners. Like, he ran things by her and they were partners. And I think Jamie and Claire can kind of, connect with that because they are very much partners too. But without having that husband, that male figure that can be her voice for her ideas too, she's sort of at a loss. And I can see why she wants Jamie to be there, because Jamie is smart. He is business minded. He's hey.
Yeah, absolutely. And like when when the situation goes down at the sawmill and word gets sent back to the house, Auntie Jocasta comes straight for Jamie and is like, I need for you to be my representative. Something has happened between one of the slaves and the overseer. I need for you to go out there and manage the situation. And this is where we launch into sort of the last part of the episode that is really, for me, the biggest struggle. And that is once they arrive and see Overseer Burns with his ear cut off, but he and his people have stuck a hook into Rufus and are hoisting him into the air.
That was something, because Claire, her immediate response is, where's the injured person so that I can help them? Mm-hmm. And they are not thinking of Rufus. They are thinking of this overseer. They are thinking of Burns. And when I think I don't want to say it's been abstract, but all they've seen of slavery so far has been like working in the fields outside of River Run, or in the house, like helping with, the clothing but when they see Rufus in that moment, it becomes so much more just, I don't want to say visceral, like it just becomes like this is what's happening. Yeah. This is what I can't be a part of, Jamie.
Yeah, yeah. And what do? They hop out, they see what's going on, and Jamie and Claire are on the same page. And that is, we need to get Rufus down and we need to help him. And when when Jamie takes both of those pistols and points it at Burns and his men, and he's like, you bring him down or this is your last day here on this planet. Yeah. And they bring him down, right? And Claire gets to work. And Claire is like, look, we have to get him back to the house if I'm going to save him. And Jamie is like, yes, let's go. Let's do it. Right. So they're definitely on the same page, which I thought was important.
Oh, you're right. It's super important because the men look at Jamie and they're like, who are you? Like, who are you to tell us what's going on here? And he's like, I'm the heir to River. I'm the heir to all of this. Like, this is all my business now. Mm-hmm. But to have Claire in that, like, whenever they get Rufus and she's in her element.
Yes.
I think that scene was horrible and it's horrific. And Claire is just like, I need this, hold this. She responds under pressure in a way that I think that just was incredible.
Yeah. No, Claire's instinct is always to save a life. Claire's instinct is always to save a life. And she is good at it. And when they get Rufus back to the house, I see, and here comes this tension. Like, even as I'm talking about it, I feel this tension in my chest, because even when they get back to the house, they take him and they put him on the dining room table, and you see everyone around just like looking. And even as Claire is like, Mary, get this, go get Ian and tell him to bring my supply box. Phaedra, I need this, and this. There's a hesitation there. And that hesitation is real, because it's like, if I help you to save this, if I help you to save Rufus, I am aiding and abetting you in breaking the law. Because the law says that Rufus must die. And if I help you save him, number one, I'm not doing my other duties that I'm supposed to be doing, and that's going to get me in trouble. And on top of that, I'm aiding and abetting you in saving this person, this man, this slave that's been condemned to die, right? So there's hesitation there, but that hesitation is real.
And like Phaedra, she goes and she gets the things, and is it Mary? Mary, she's kind of watching, and I think it's like a mixture of that hesitation and like just being overwhelmed by just the blood and Claire working on this, and that she gets her out of the way. And Ulysses points it out, what you've done here is you've condemned a whole lot more people than just this one man now.
Yeah.
And that's horrifying.
It's the risk. It's risky, right? And you're right. Ulysses, Ulysses, as you said, gave voice to that immense risk that they were all under.
And it's so tragic to think, like Claire, like you said, her first instinct is to save people. It's to do no harm. It's to take someone who is on the brink of death. If she can do anything to ease their pain, ease their suffering, that's who she is.
Yes.
And to have all of that's kind of core her.
And positive.
be something that is, well, you can't do that for this person because of this.
Yeah.
That's devastating in a hopelessness.
Yeah. It really is. It really is. Because like even because Claire wouldn't want to do harm. I mean, she certainly wouldn't want to do harm to her patient, Rufus, but she wouldn't want to do harm to any of the other slaves there. But what Ulysses tells her, and then eventually Jamie tells her, is that this is the insidiousness and how embedded slavery is in this society. If Rufus is not punished, they all will be punished. Right? I mean, that's how sort of that's the structure that maintained this institution for centuries, right? The fact that it was so embedded, the fact that it was so intertwined, the fact that um, one was treated as all. The fact that it was built on fear, built on making an example out of someone, demonstrating that example. This is what happens when you try to push back. This is what happens when you raise a hand to a white man. This is what happens. That fear, that is what sustained slavery for centuries in this country.
I'm trying to think, because I texted you earlier. I was like, I'm gonna have to get my thoughts in order, because to watch this with Rufus and to know there is no winning. There's no outcome here that will ever be positive. Rufus will die, or several other people will die, whoever was there, and Rufus knows it.
Yes, he does.
Knows it when he is awake. He's like, I spilled a white man's blood, and it's so it's freaking, like, there are so many things that you want to say that aren't articulate, that aren't just like, let me explain to you in all these beautiful words why it's wrong. It's just like, this is just effed up.
Yeah.
And I can't, and it's hard and it's horrible and I don't like it, but it's important, because that's one of the things that I've been trying to realize watching this, and also with all these other things throughout history, is even though it makes us uncomfortable, it doesn't mean that we should ignore it or try and make it more palatable, because that's doing a disservice to all of these people who suffered so greatly. And it's horrible to watch, but that's a reality.
Absolutely.
What happened to Rufus is a reality.
Absolutely. And again, I come back to this, what I repeated over and over again last semester, and that is agency and dignity, right? That even in the context of enslavement, even in the context of that, of being enslaved, that there is still opportunity to treat one's story with respect and with dignity. And I think, and that, as I said, I think this episode did that well, right? I mean, when Rufus wakes up, and Katie, as you said, he realizes that he is a condemned man, or that he is condemned, but he's still able to share his story, right? And Claire and Ian are there to receive it, right? And he tells them that Claire offers him, do you have any family? Is there anyone that I can bring to come see you? And he says, no, my family's in Africa. And judging from his sister's name, Abena, as well as he mentions Ajumako, which is a city in Ghana. So we assume that he was taken and enslaved by off the coast of Ghana, right? So he tells the story of how he and his sister were playing in the trees, and they were snatched from the trees. He and his sister were separated on the beach, and he was taken to a boat the size of which he'd never seen before. And here he is at River Run, right? And even as he's speaking, you see both Claire and Ian so receiving that story and understanding the very deep tragedy and the very sincere wrong that has taken place.
And I think, and I'm not definitely not equating this, because Ian did, find his family again, and his family did seek him out, but Ian was taken, and Ian had no way of knowing when or if he was going to ever see anybody again. And so I think for Ian, it kind of hits him a little bit that he is very lucky in the fact that his family did seek him out and find him. Whereas Rufus's family wouldn't, there's never that option for them. There's never anyone coming.
Yeah.
There's no way to get him back, and there's no way for him to go back.
Yeah. Yeah. And even in that moment, again, there's like a little bit of levity. Like when Claire calls Burns, like he tries, she says that, Rufus, you were justified in what you did. That Burns is a real son of a bitch or something like that. And Rufus is like, I'm not supposed to be here. And also, why are you talking to me like this? Why are you saying these words? And Ian sort of like, laughs it off and says, you've never met a woman like my Auntie Claire. She can curse like a sailor. So there's like, there's some levity there as well that I thought, that I thought was well placed. But then, we realized that Lieutenant Wolf and Farquhar Campbell are in the house, that they are coming. People are coming to collect on a transgression that they believe happened here. Claire seems to have confidence that Jamie can handle things, but we're with Jamie, and we know that in fact, there's no matter what he says, whether or not he says that Rufus is under his protection, that in fact makes no difference in this situation. No difference at all.
And I think that's one of the moments where you can see where it's quiet between them for a little bit, where they realize that there's nothing left to be done. And, he's going to die. And there's nothing that they can do to stop it. There's nothing they can do to protect these people. The hope to buy these slaves and to free these slaves is seemingly never going to be able to happen. And this is one of those things that doesn't take several episodes for Claire and Jamie to realize they're not going to be able to like break this system.
Yeah.
That they are truly powerless here. And I as soon as he came upstairs, as soon as Jamie came upstairs, I knew what he was going to tell Claire. I knew what he was going to ask her to do. Because honestly, do you give this boy, because he's not a man, he's a boy, do you give this boy to this mob with their pitchforks and their torches and their rope and their hatefulness, and let him be torn apart while he's still alive? Or do you kind of help him the way she helped Colin? And for Claire, I think Jamie even tells her, it's the lesser of, two evils. He says something to the extent of it's the lesser of two evils. Like, which one is it going to be?
It's a horrible choice.
It's a horrible choice, because either way, this kid's going to die.
But I need to say something.
Yeah.
I need to say something. So I want to be clear that I wrestled with this episode because of the tension. But even with that said, I don't fault Claire at all for her reactions during this episode, right? I mean, so I was live tweeting the episode tonight, and there were several comments to the effect that Claire put herself and Jamie, as well as Auntie Jocasta, in danger by trying to confront slavery as she did. I, on the other hand, do not fault Claire for that, because Claire, if anything we know about Claire, Claire is a person who, when she believes she is on the side of right, she will do what she believes is right. And that's certainly in this case. So throughout the episode, I do not fault Claire for what she has said, what she has done. What I do fault Claire for is the way that the process, not the decision that she came to, that yes, assisting Rufus in this suicide would be the best of two horrible decisions. I do not fault her for making that decision. I fault her for the way she goes about it, because I think that she removed Rufus's agency in this death. Rufus was very sober-minded about the situation that he was now in, right? He was very sober-minded. He knew, he said it to Claire, right? That, you shouldn't have saved me, right? I mean, that's essentially what he was saying, right? That I should be dead. Either way, I'm going to die, right? So if in that moment, Claire explained, right, that this is the choice. This is what I'm now going to do, right? I don't think Rufus, again, is very sober-minded. He wouldn't have pushed back on Claire. In fact, I think he would have agreed with Claire, right?
Yeah.
But the fact that Claire just makes the tea, gives him the tea, and then asks him, to reflect on his sister as he dies, I'm going to give you something to help you sleep. I didn't like that at all. I didn't like it.
I agree. I didn't care for that. But it's because of the reasons you said. Because I think that if given the choice, Rufus would have chosen Claire's, tea in the end. But why I don't understand why you would take that away from someone who's clearly capable of making that decision. And I know that the writers have said that they wanted it, that they wanted Rufus to say that to kill him, but they decided to go a different way so that Claire would wrestle with that decision more and make it a more personal decision for Claire, because the episode is called "Do Not Harm." That goes back to Claire's her doctor status. But I just don't think it was the right decision. I don't think that Rufus's death is something that Claire should decide. I thought that even if Rufus said kill me or help me or anything to that extent, it would have put the agency back in his court and Claire could have helped. And she still would have wrestled with that decision.
Yeah.
Claire still would have hated that was the only option. She would have been like, well, yes, I'll make you some tea and it's going to all be fine now. She still would have wrestled with it. I think that it was just, I guess.
Yeah, and I understand the other side as well. I understand that, Rufus's death was already out of his hands. He already didn't have any agency,
Sure.
right? Because either way he was going to die. So in the end, it really isn't a big deal. I understand that, but I still come back to this thing that I've been saying and I've said tonight, which is that even in the context of enslavement, there's a way to show respect, dignity, and agency. And I think in that moment, and I'm just thinking about Claire herself, right? I think that action actually deviates from who Claire is. I actually think Claire as a character would explain what was going on to this young boy, would say, this is what I'm about to do. And maybe choice is the wrong word. I'm trying to think of a better word, but there would be more of an interaction. There would be more engagement there, rather than it being something that, she sort of does on her own, sort of irrespective of his thoughts, his feelings in his final moments. You know what I mean? So I actually think that that was out of character for Claire, if I'm being honest with. I mean, I don't, you know, folks who are watching, you guys will let me know what you think, but I thought that was out of character.
Well, and okay, so Claire has spent this entire episode talking about and been very open with her views on slavery. And this would have been her opportunity to give someone who did not have agency in that situation. And yes, he was going to die either way. I know that. He knew that. Claire knew that. But this could have been her opportunity to extend that sort of that agency, that decency of saying, you're a person, what do you want? And letting him choose. And you know, both the decisions aren't great, and he ends up dead either way, but it still seems like that would have been something Claire would have allowed or thought about.
That's what I think. That's what I think. But I mean, those final moments, those final moments were horrific. They were horrific, right? Because midnight strikes. Claire is sitting with Rufus as Rufus is thinking about his sister, fishing in the moonlight, thinking about the moonlight. He passes away. Jamie gets on his, and Claire is crying. Jamie gets on his knees and prays for Rufus's soul. Perhaps he's praying for them all, actually, praying for them all, praying for forgiveness for them all for what they've done. Jamie carries Rufus's body, his dead body, out and lays it down on the porch. And that mob puts a noose around Rufus's dead body, drags him through the dirt, and then hang him on a tree while cheering and jeering and celebrating. And I ask you, is that civilization? Is that civilization, right? Who are the savages here? Who are the barbarians here?
Everything that you just said, because they've sort of preached this. Well, we're bringing civility. Without us, they wouldn't have any of these things. And I'll be honest, whenever Jamie came out and laid Rufus down, I really sincerely, I thought that was the end of the episode. But when they took it that extra step, it's devastating. And we're going to be we are going to encounter Native Americans. We're going to encounter even more slavery, and you have them all branded in a certain way as being uncivilized, as being barbaric. But to have these civilized upper crusts, like these are the members of society who everyone looks up to, actively cheering the hanging of an already dead boy. It's awful.
It is.
Like, and awful's like the least word I could say, because there's no word for it.
And I mean, you see, but I will say this. It was important for us to see Jamie and Claire seeing this, because I feel like Jamie and Claire already knew that River Run wasn't for them. But in that moment, you look at Jamie's face, the anger. You look at Claire's face, the anger. They're not about to stay in River Run. This is not about to be where they settle roots. They're not about to become part of this society, right? Of this sort of collection of people. And if that means taking the governor's offer, if that means going out west and establishing a new settlement outside of proper society, then so be it. Because they're not about to actively participate in this barbarism. And I thought that was important to see.
I agree. Whenever Claire kind of grabs his arm,
yeah,
in that scene, because she can't say anything anymore, but you can see it in her face. You can see it in how she grabs his arm and holds on. And Jamie just looks like he looks furious. And I mean, he loves his family. Jamie does love his family, but he's not going to hang out around River Run if this is how his aunt wants him to run it.
No, like, not at all.
Find someone else to marry. Best of luck. We're not going to be here and party to this.
Yeah. No, exactly. And, you know, that's where we come to, that's where the episode ends. And we do see, you know, the preview for next week. And next week tells us that, in fact, Jamie and Claire and Ian do head out west with John Quincy Myers, random as he is. He is a character from the book, don't get me wrong, but he does seem kind of randomly placed here. And we also get to catch up with Bree and Roger.
Hey.
So that is hopefully something positive to look forward to.
It is positive because Roger looks at Bree and he's like, I want you. And I'm like, yes. Like, someone just give me happiness and let my other ship just be happy for a little while.
I know.
I love Roger so much.
I know you do.
Guys, I love Roger so much. I love Bree too, don't get me wrong, but oh my goodness, Roger.
I know you do. Well, I will. Okay, so I have a few more things to say because you guys know me by now. So I will say that I hope that I really, really liked seeing Ulysses and Phaedra. And I hope that, I mean, they have a significant storyline in the books. And I know we're moving away from River Run, but I do hope we have a chance to catch up with Ulysses and Phaedra again and dive more deeply into their storyline, because it's actually, it's pretty deep. It's pretty intense. So I do hope we have a chance for that, to do that. And I also want to say this as well. So you guys know, and I've said it before, that I was really nervous, and I was really nervous about Outlander proceeding past season 3. And the reason why I was concerned was, as I said, the portrayal of slavery as well as the portrayal of mistreatment of Native Americans. And I will say that tonight's episode, I think cast and creators, except for, you know, some of the things that I mentioned already, I think the episode did really well. I think it was a strong episode, if I'm being honest with you. I thought it was a very strong episode. But what does concern me is the extent to which we as a fandom, and we, maybe even more broadly, we as a society, are ready and willing to engage in very sincere and honest conversations about the content that we've seen, right? And that is what makes me nervous. Not even really the portrayal, is the extent to which we as a fandom are willing and able and ready to have sincere conversation. And I will tell you, I was live tweeting tonight, and the things that I saw while live tweeting, it leads me to believe that there are many members of our fandom who are ready and willing and able to engage in this conversation, but there are also many members of the fandom who are not prepared to engage in such conversation. And that leaves me incredibly, incredibly worried.
And I'll say, like, I think this episode was very strong, and I'm glad that they handled the content, you know, how they did. And we've mentioned the little things that, you know, we would have tweaked if we had been given the opportunity. But I think Fumi's absolutely right. There are some, you know, it's going to be in every fandom, but especially given the nature of the content that we're going to be seeing the rest of the season, it is an opportunity to have very meaningful conversations and dialogue, but there are some people that are really not ready for this and treat it almost almost as if they're kind of swiping it away. Like, oh, you must have been with the Quakers for a little while. And that's not the kind of people that's not the kind of approach we need for some of the topics to come at all. But Fumi says it way better than I do because her words are much better than mine.
That's not true. That's not true.
It's very true.
Well, in any event, all around, this was a tough episode. And I it's incredible to say that after America the Beautiful, right? Mm-hmm. So if this is the story of season 4, guys, we're going to need to help each other through this because 2 episodes in and I'm already like done. Well, not done, but I'm devastated. I am really, really devastated. And I have a lot of thinking and unpacking to do myself. But we have this next week, and hopefully those of you who are watching will please comment below, find us on social media, take a look at our review and comment on that. I'm asking for your help. Help me to digest this. Help me. Let us help each other to digest this. So guys, we always want to hear from you. Very sincerely, we do. So I hope that you'll share your thoughts, share your interpretations, how you're working through this episode, and we'll help each other get through it, guys.
Yes, thanks guys so much for watching and for interacting with this. And I hope that you check out the review this week. Fumi was on top of that one this time, and it's awesome. So, it's in the link down below, so check it out and talk with us. Comment, just everything Fumi said. We'd love to hear from you. And this is some of our things that we look forward to every single week is kind of getting to have these conversations and getting to visit with everybody else because it's fun.
It is. Thank you so much, guys. And sorry for the technical difficulties. I will work on it for next time. I will. Yeah. Thank you guys very much. Have a fantastic week. We'll see you next week. Okay. Take it easy, guys.
Bye.